Do 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 5 hours in.
Hi everyone, this is Dan.
And this is QJ.
And welcome to 5 Hours In.
So I recently took a plane all the way across the pond to visit Dan in England, so we took the time to play the first 5 hours of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
So the story begins at a birthday party for everyone's favourite ape, Donkey Kong. When a couple of penguins who were up to no good started making trouble in his neighbourhood, he got in...
Stop it, Dan.
Okay, fine.
So this walrus guy froze up DK's island and blew the Kongs all the way to the Lost Mangroves, where they had to make their way back and fight through all the pesky snow owls and very naughty penguins. Those cheeky penguins.
Wow, it looks like someone's picking up a bit of English slang while they're here.
You what, mate?
QJ, you're pushing me over the line.
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, the first world is great. An easy start where it's immediately clear that this game is absolutely beautiful. It reintroduces a lot of familiar mechanics from Returns while displaying creative new level designs and a wonderful array of new enemies and themes.
Yeah, this game is instantly a lot of fun. Unsurprisingly, starting off with jungle themes, it quickly took us through all types of seasons, natural landscapes, and environmental terrains. I mean, how pretty are all those autumn leaves? We also bombard through like savanna underbrush, seaside palm trees, and juicy tropical delights. This game never ceased to surprise me.
Agreed. Each world had a great new theme, with windmills, hot air balloons, and other contraptions all over World 2, awesome bushfire levels in World 3, and ridiculous levels where we bounced through the penguins' jelly factory in World 5. The only world I didn't fall in love with was World 4, because even in a game that tries so hard to make water levels fun, water levels just are not fun.
Well, I mean, in World 5, the water sections were technically fruit juice. So I struggled with the water levels as well, especially playing with the Wiimote and the nunchuck. Shaking the Wii remote was not the most efficient control for swimming, nor was it for rolling on land.
Yeah, you did die a lot, and honestly I probably did just as much, but thankfully the co-op system accounts for that really well.
Yes. Having recently raged my way through Donkey Kong Country Returns, it was nice to have such a forgiving mechanic to the game. To carelessly fall off a platform and not have to start over 10,000 times because my friend was alive and well, waiting for me to return on the string of what we now understand to be a birthday balloon.
Yeah, and it was helpful also for you to have the option to jump on my back anytime you wanted a break.
Yeah, I'm a weakling.
True, you are. One of the things that did mess us up, however, was the way that the minecart levels and Rammy levels put us both in control of one object. So our lack of coordination would lead right to death a lot of the time, where we just try and both jump at the same time and it wouldn't work.
Thankfully, we're both rather patient players, so this led to more giggles and fewer fistfights.
Well, not zero fistfights.
Shush.
Anyway, the game had a whole bunch of really neat little details. I personally love the penguin enemies, especially the flying ones with the little aviator hats and goggles. And I adored the way that the big fat owls would carry like platforms on their heads as they flew. And Donkey Kong's doofy facial expressions are always just a joy to watch in any game.
That was definitely entertaining. I felt like I could really see the effort and care animators put into Donkey Kong and Diddy's movements and noises. Little things like Diddy holding onto his hat when he slid on the ice, or how the Kongs clearly got vertigo when they're too near an edge. And of course, the classic cartoony way Diddy attempts to balance on a rolling Donkey Kong, flailing his tiny feet. I could not get past how totally adorable Diddy's squeaks and squeals were. His yips of excitement and shrieks of terror brought me never-ending joy in a game that, like its predecessor, could have brought with it so much pain and anguish.
Yeah, the sound design throughout this game was just great altogether. Like how the penguins would give a silly scream when you killed them, or just the fact that the soundtrack was stellar. Every track on this game was just a joy to hear. One song in particular that stood out to me was the metal guitar track that played during the boss fight in World 5, which was the last thing we did at the end of our 5 hours.
The boss fights were very well designed, if not a tad overwhelming, but what boss fight isn't, really? I could be wrong, but some of them seem to have less of a formula and more randomization to their attacks, which definitely was a new way of keeping me on my toes.
It definitely did feel like they'd throw out new attacks far more regularly than the normal Nintendo boss. But thankfully they were all pretty well telegraphed, so you'd have a decent idea of what was coming each time. Mechanics aside, the boss designs were incredibly charming. Like the World 5 boss I mentioned earlier was probably my favourite. It was a huge warhammer wielding polar bear who just wanted to eat his ice lolly.
Yeah, it was actually kind of sad that we were beating him up when it was our fault his popsicle fell in the sea. In fact, a lot of the cutscenes had an enormous amount of detail, not only in the gorgeous animation, but in the content. Like the silly rude seal popping through a circus hoop. Designers aren't required to do these things, and they do it for us. That makes me super happy.
Yeah, another thing I really liked was the introduction to the owl boss, because Donkey Kong's reaction to him smashing a banana with his hammer was just priceless.
Also, the zooming 3D introductory cutscenes to the start of each world were very charming and gave each world some depth and meaning. In fact, the 3D animation in this game was just brilliant and quite captivating. It had barrels that shot you through the foreground and into the background, or some levels would just shift from one perspective of gameplay right into another. It was actually almost disorienting how novel this effect was on me.
Yeah, the way the minecart levels would have the camera turn to show where you were going more clearly was neatly. Speaking of minecarts, there was a level where the minecart turned into a cute little log flume to mix it up a little, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, this game had so many new and neat little things to appreciate. It's definitely not just another sequel. Its uniqueness and adorable quirks make it so special and just a ton of fun to experience, and I can't wait to play it more.
Indeed, let's go finish off that last world. My final word in this game would be that it's excellent, and if you haven't played it already, it's definitely worth picking it up. One of the best games in the Wii U's tiny library, if you ask me.
Well, I'm glad I traveled halfway across the globe for this. This has been 5 Hours In. I've been QJ.
And I've been Dan. Goodbye.
Do 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 do. This is our Red Slate song.